human beings, and the thing about sobriety is when we are drinking, we can't grow, and we have to grow. It's a universal law of life. If you look around, you will see that to be true. Buildings, organizations, people, nature, everything's growing. If we're not growing, then we are dying. So when we are drinking, we are dying on the inside. We're certainly not growing, we're not able to grow emotionally.
Welcome to the Alcohol Addiction Podcast. My name is Lee Davey. I'm not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I'm someone that doesn't drink alcohol. I spend every waking moment of my life helping other people do the same. Now, today, we're going to be talking to Veronica Valli. But before we get to Veronica, I want to offer you an apology. It's a long time since you've heard my voice, right? And if you like hearing my voice, then that's a pretty bad thing. If you're fed up on my voice, then, you've had a good break away from it. I lost my virtual assistant, and to be honest, I didn't realize how much it would affect me. I have this kind of mantra where I have to delegate as much as I can, right? And when she kind of left, and I'm worried about her, I can't get hold of her. I don't know what she's doing. If you're listening to this, get in touch with me. But it really sent me back, and I realized it was so much of my life that is not controlled by me anymore. So I'm slowly getting back into it. I think I might have found someone to take her place, who's a striver, which is fantastic. I love working more in depth with strivers. That's really important to me. But there you are. There's my excuse. I do apologize. Okay. I want to welcome to Strive James, Flora, Michael, Alan, and Jennifer. Big well done for realizing that you shouldn't do this alone, that you don't have to do this alone, okay? It takes great balls to be able to pay, put your credit card on the line and pay a monthly subscription to join a group of strangers you don't know and start sharing your most vulnerable secrets with, right? I know how difficult that is, so I really, really appreciate it, okay? But I can tell you it will be the best decision you've ever made in your life, all right? Stick with us here. We will help you stop drinking alcohol, build some rockets, and fly to Mars. I promise you that, right? And I also want to say welcome back to Doug. Doug left us for a little while and played around in, this is quite a big pool at the moment. This is the old I want to stop drinking alcohol pool. There's lots of different people helping different people. And Doug went and had a look around and seen what everyone was doing. He's come back to Strive, and we love him. We missed him. It's good to have him back. So welcome back, Doug. I also want to say a tender farewell to Holly. Holly's been a Striver for 2 years. 2 freaking years. And she's decided that she's going to leave us, and she's going to, have a look what else is happening out there in the world. She's going to use everything that she's learned in Strive to help other people quit alcohol, which is a fantastic thing over in Hawaii. And Holly, just want to wish you all the best. Tell you that I love you. We all love you at Strive. And Phil, who is also an integral cog in the Strive machine, Phil is going to have a hiatus for a little while. And you could do that at Strive. You pay £40 a month, and if you don't want to, you don't want to get involved in Strive this month, you don't pay it. Just cancel your subscription, you take the month off. Phil's going to do that for a couple of months, and hopefully we're going to see him back when he's had a little bit of a break. And some people need that, right? Some people need a break. Other people like me are just mental mad for it and just want to just kind of get stuck into this stuff every day. So Phil, we will miss you, but we're here if you need us, brother, okay? We are going to be doing an intensive. We're going to be running an intensive, December and January. We are going to ask 10 people to join us, work with our ambassadors and our coaches and myself. And you're going to have to do or commit to do an assignment daily, midweek, okay, throughout December and January, but we'll give you Christmas Day off, all right? The intensity of that is really important. I just want to put that out there. It's like super important, this intensity, because you're changing neurological connections and belief systems around alcohol. So best way to change a belief system is really go at it like learning your new belief system. So we've got that to do. So if you want to join that, send me an email at thetruthaboutalcohol@gmail.com. And don't forget our fabulous coaches, Lisa who's our grief expert. We've got John, who's our CBT expert, and we've got Vinny, who's our trauma expert. There is the core reason you drink alcohol, folks, is because alcoholism is an invisible, violent, and dominant belief system, and you were designed from birth to drink, without doubt, okay? But there's a secondary reason that you drink. It's likely that it's linked to some childhood trauma. Let our Strive coaches help you with that, okay? Insane value. You're talking quite a lot of money per hour to be dealing with professionals like this. You get that for free when you're paying £40 a month at Strive. So considering that we will help you save between £100 and £200 a week because you won't be buying alcohol, it's an insane amount of value. I can't bang on about it anymore because it freaks me out. It's just so much value, okay? Anyway, I'm going to shut up and talk about our guest. Veronica Valli has been joyously sober since May 2nd, 2000. Wow, that is a long time. Originally from the UK, she's a psychotherapist, emotional freedom technique practitioner, EFT, a recovery coach and author of books, Why You Drink and How to Stop, Get Sober, Get Free, and the co-host of the Soberful Podcast. Veronica is passionately believes that anyone can recover from an alcohol problem if they're given the right tools and support. She has personally helped thousands of women transform their lives. And Veronica believes that alcohol is only a symptom of the problem, and that to recover, thrive, and become the women we are truly meant to be, we need to embrace the process of change. Same with men, I guess. Now based in the USA, in New York, she works with women all over the world through her online programs and Facebook groups, and she's married and lives on Long Island with her husband and 2 sons. She has a free Facebook group called Soberful. You can catch her on Instagram at @lovesoberful, and her website is veronicavalli.com. She's also got some training courses on that website. One of them is to help you deal with your triggers, and another is to help you deal with sugar cravings. And if you go to thrive.soberforlife.com, thrive.soberforlife.com, and you'll be able to get those for half price for listening to this podcast. So without further ado, I'm going to shut the hell up, leave you in the capable hands of Veronica Valli, where we talk about triggers, okay? Anything you want to know about triggers, you're going to hear about it with Veronica. If you have any questions for her, email me at thetruthaboutalcohol@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Alcohol Addiction Podcast, Veronica Valli. How's life?
It's pretty good. It's the day before Thanksgiving here, so we're kind of relaxing.
Are you into Thanksgiving as an English lady living in New York?
You know what? I really struggle with it. I'm married to an American. I have 2 American children, so I try, but I just don't have any emotional attachment to it. It's like a long weekend, you know. I cook a roast dinner. We have some time with the family. I try. I mean, I like the whole idea of it. I just don't have the emotional attachment that Americans have when they grow up.
You're probably like me, right? You grew up having a roast dinner every Sunday.
Oh yeah,
so like, you know, what's
a good roast?
What is a big deal? Yeah, I mean, I'm vegan and I still love a good Sunday dinner, you know, minus the meat and stuff. But
yeah,
so I'll be looking forward to the food and the family getting together. But yeah, I'm the same as you. It doesn't really stimulate me in any way. And actually, that's a good point. So Thanksgiving is going to be a trigger for a lot of people who are trying to stop drinking alcohol. So I brought you on to talk about triggers, so we can talk about that. You know, Let's start by breaking down a trigger into its elements. What is a trigger?
A trigger is when we have a very quick response to an external stimulation. So the reason we have such a quick response is we've been conditioned. So I always kind of think of it as like dominoes going down. So, you know, it could be, you know, for instance, it could be like, for me, I was very much a binge drinker over the weekend. So sort of, like Thursday, Friday feels different to a Monday. Yeah. So that kind of Friday morning feeling, it's like the dominoes go down. It's like, it's Friday, I finish work early, I go to the bank, I'm going to get my hair done, I'm going to get a bottle of wine, I'm going to So it's the way that because as we're growing, you know, as children and into adulthood, our brains are always creating shortcuts. Like, so when X happens, our brain goes, oh, X happens, that means YZ. So it everything can happen. It can just be more organized and you can get more done. So when we stop drinking, external triggers are something that we definitely have to pay attention to in our early days of sobriety, because it can be a smell, it can be visual, it can be something we can hear. I mean, it can happen on so many levels, and it's very sensory as well. You know, our senses respond to it. I have this... So my favorite perfume is Jean Paul Gaultier. If you remember back, like it's like the bottle is like the kind of naked woman. It's quite a strong smell.
I used to wear the man's perfume. Yeah.
Well, I love that perfume, and I really started wearing it in the late 90s when I lived in North London. And whenever I smelt that perfume in sobriety, I went straight back to North London. I could almost kind of feel the cocaine at the back of my nose because I was doing a lot of cocaine then. I could just like feel that uncomfortable loneliness, not comfortable in my own skin feeling that I had like during the whole of the 90s. And that smell and I couldn't wear that perfume for about a decade.
Right.
And it's not that I would wear it and I would want to drink or use cocaine. It's just like, it took me back to memories that were just like, and even now I put it on, it's faintly there, but I love the perfume so much. I've gotten over that, but it always kind of, now it's more of yeah, that's how it was for me, but it's not anymore.
So when you get that whiff of nostalgia, you would prefer not to have those memories, or are you able to filter out the good from the bad? How does it work for you?
Oh, now any memory I have about the past is fine. You know, so like when that smell reminds me of that time of my life in my sort of early to middle 20s, you know, it's like, wow, it's kind of like the comparison. It's like, wow, that's how it was. And it's not like that now. And all that survived is the perfume.
Talk about that a little bit then, because this is something that comes up in Strive quite a lot, and it actually leads into the question that Kim asked. Actually, I'll lead into Kim's question because I think the context is there for it. She says, "Are urges the same as triggers, or are urges just random thoughts based on decades of habitual behavior, whereas triggers are value based?" So she's put context. If you continue to have urges, does this mean that you still value alcohol, or is it a result of the habitual part of your brain that has spent decades firing urges at you in an attempt to make you feel better? Is it a question of constantly rewiring the neurons by dismissing the urges, or looking for the deeper value, or is it a combination of both?
I think she pretty much answered her own question there. One thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently is the depth of which we are programmed. We are all programmed. We are programmed, and our programming occurs from the most significant programming occurs from 0 to 7 years, from our family of origin, our community, our religion. It programs us it's how we give, you know, we're constantly taking in data. We're constantly absorbing data to create meaning of the world, like to understand the world. So you can understand if someone grew up in a very abusive environment and was constantly told, you're worthless, excuse me, you're not good enough, all that kind of stuff. That's programming. That child's going to bring that into them and create those conclusions. And what the brain will do is create a shortcut. So when someone raises their voice, that means you're not good enough. When daddy slams the door, that means you're not good enough. So 20 years later, when someone slams the door, that means I did something wrong, I'm not good enough. So we're always being programmed. But I think and I've been thinking about this a lot as well, is just how much marketing programs and conditions. Yeah. So we're recording this at the end of November, and I'm quite frankly, I'm so grateful for Netflix because it doesn't have commercials. But whenever my kids see, you know, the commercials on a kid's show, it's all Christmas toys, and that's them being programmed. And all of a sudden, my son wants this thing that 45 minutes ago he'd never heard of, but now his life depends on him.
Yeah, it's like the most important thing in the world.
So marketing really relies on us being triggered and having urges, you know. They're really the same thing. It really, you know, that visual or that auditory stimulation where all of a sudden the dominoes go down and we're like, oh, I have to have that because of how it's going to make me feel. because that's the whole thing about marketing, right? It's all designed about it, how it's going to make you feel. If I own that, I will feel this. So I think that we have to really kind of, it's really interesting. I mean, because I've been sober almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in May. How much, like, I just don't see it really now. I'm like immune to alcohol. I don't really notice it. Occasionally I notice it. I mean, like I'll have a barbecue or something. I'll get some beers and some wine for some of my guests. I give that about as much attention as buying a cabbage. You know, it just doesn't register. So I don't really notice it. But in the early days, it's just like everywhere. It's all you notice. It's just all the time. And that's the conditioning. So that we then have an urge. So then we want to then have the product.
Yeah. The other thing I found with myself was alcohol was like ubiquitous and it was everywhere and I didn't really think about it. And then when I learned more about it and the conditioning and the belief system and everything around it, and I started to pay more attention to alcohol, then I saw it everywhere. And today now, because of my work, I think I'm like 8 years sober. I still see it everywhere and I still get super angry. So you're telling me that when I get to 20, 30 years, it might not even bother me. But at the moment, like if I'm on a tube, if I go in a tube in London, I see the Jack Daniel's sign. If I'm on an airplane going to Barcelona, I see the gin advert in front of me. Like if I'm in a cinema, I see the adverts. And I never used to see them before, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I don't notice that stuff. I mean, something like that will stand out to me, but for the reason of like, wow, that's so manipulative. Like,
yeah, same here. Yeah,
that is. You know, it's really interesting what you were just saying. We're both British and we both live in the States. One of the things, for instance, about alcohol that is certainly part of my mission is not drinking was never presented as an option.
You're right.
Right? It was, I think I'm 47. I think we're roughly
44. Yeah.
Yeah. We're the same age. So we grew up in a culture where it's almost like you're going to get a driver's license, you're going to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Like there was not drinking was simply like just not ever and never. It was not represented anywhere. I mean, there was a weird person once in a while who didn't drink, or a weird person who wants to be a weird person. So it's interesting now, the shift we're going through, where I think that's my goal. Honestly, that's my goal in life, is for my kids, is I want not drinking to be like being a vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah.
Just an option. You know, it's like a lifestyle choice. There's lots of benefits to it. And it's not weird or strange or nobody blinks at it. But we still... I think it's certainly in the British culture, and absolutely in the American culture too, is this conditioning which will set you up for these urges and triggers in adulthood that you are going to drink alcohol. And not only just you're going to drink alcohol, you're going to be drunk. Like that's deeply programmed in us from childhood. And you
really want to. Like, so you're looking forward to it. I just watched the Truth About Alcohol on Netflix, a documentary. I haven't finished it yet. I'm kind of watching it as I potter around the kitchen, you know. And they had these professional footballers in. They were doing an experiment on them. And this little part encapsulated it for me. They gave half of the football team non-alcoholic lager and the other alcohol lager, obviously, because they wanted to do an experiment to see if they would eat more food if they drank the alcohol side of it. So they didn't know they were drinking non-alcohol. So afterwards, when they get them all in, and they tell this group that, hey, you were drinking non-alcoholic lager, this guy turns around and says, I'm not happy with that. Now, he was half joking, but that statement in a couple of seconds encapsulates the belief system for me. It's like I'm not happy with that because I'm a man. Like I want my beer. Like and so kids grow up not only hyper aware that alcohol is kind of ubiquitous and is normal, but they really can't wait to drink it because that's what mum and dad do, and they want to do what mum and dad does. It's the same as a hot cup of tea for the first time, or, you know, being trusted to drink coffee. I mean, it's
exactly that. It's exactly that. And I know there's definitely an argument, you know, you definitely go onto the continent and you look at cultures like France and Italy. Now, France, by the way, still has extremely high rates of cirrhosis of the liver. The UK has overtaken France, but for a long time, France was the European leader in cirrhosis of the liver. So they still have chronic alcohol problems. But they don't have the binge drinking problem in the same way. Like, you don't go to Rome and see 18-year-old Italians throwing up in the gutter, falling out. But not typically. It's not typical the way it is in England. So there's, I think about this a lot. My husband is not in sobriety, but if he never had a drink again in the rest of his life, he wouldn't care. He has an occasional drink, very occasionally. So our kids are just not around that. Again, appropriately, if we have a barbecue, we would serve beer and wine. They would see it then. So I'm hoping that they would see appropriate alcohol use around us. That's all they see. They see it occasionally, and they see it in the appropriate context. So I think a lot about how I'm going to talk to them, because, for certain groups of people, there's always the one thing we don't talk about with alcohol is the cost benefit. So it's one of the first things I do, is benefit analysis. So there is always a cost. Even my husband, who very, very rarely drinks, there's still a cost, a little, and for my husband, it's, he enjoys this like for once in a blue moon in his hot chocolate. Then the cost is fine for him. There's a cost for everything. It's a cost if we eat chocolate, right? If we eat too much of that, there's always a cost to everything. So I really want to kind of educate my kids about that. And, I want to be clear that alcohol is not designed for teenage bodies. And hope, if they want to appropriately try it, then I want to help facilitate that for them. But, I saw this on Facebook the other day. I think it was a 10-year-old's birthday. 10-year-old, I think she was about 10, 11. And she was having like a pamper, nails, that kind of stuff. And they were doing mocktails.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. Yeah. Because what you're doing is, first of all, this whole thing about feminism is conditioning your daughter that her house is principle, but, whatever. I love a good manicure and pedicure whenever I can get one. It's the whole, and when you're older, you'll have manicures and pedicures and you will drink cocktails.
Yeah. I think in becoming sober, or what people call it, what it does, it does bring a clarity to life and a mindfulness to some degree. Without even meditating, you're already going to be more aware. And then you start to think, okay, like, how am I going to introduce this subject to my child? And for me, I thought it was really important that my son knew there was a different way. So he can look at his dad and say, I think my dad's super cool, and I aspire to be like him in certain ways. And he doesn't drink alcohol, and he doesn't eat meat, and blah, 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 right? Now, with Jude, he's 18. I would say the fact that I don't drink and that he sees that choice means he drinks far, far less. But he's very open to me that he will not fight against the peer pressure. So he's already lonely because he doesn't want to take drugs with his friends.
Yeah.
He's not willing to sacrifice it even further. So he's already drinking alcohol to fit in.
Yeah.
And what I try to explain to him is that's how it starts. And then as you get older, it's not the alcohol as such, it's the fact that you're trying to fit in, which is going to be your trigger. And then you'll become slowly addicted to alcohol. He's already addicted. He's already addicted at 18. Why? Because if I asked him to stop, he couldn't do it. Yeah. So it's all we can do is just be our role models. And, he lives in like a completely different environment than my family here in LA, for example. They're not even exposed to alcohol at that age. Where my boy lives, they're exposed to it at 14, 15. The parents want them to drink because they think that it's cool. Like it's absurd.
The UK is in mass denial.
Yeah.
The UK is in complete denial that alcohol has any cost to it. It's a delusion. I wrote about this in my book. It's like the emperor's new clothes. It's like we're standing there going like the emperor's naked, like there's no clothes on, and everyone's going, it's great. Oh, we had such a mad. Oh, it was so funny, and you're kind of like, we've all heard those stories. I told those stories. I'm sure you told those stories too.
Yeah.
But we know what was underneath that. When you wake up with your heart racing and the fear about what you said and who's that next to you. And I spent like 3 times the amount that I meant to. And I think I may have said something rude to my boss and I looked like an idiot in front of the guy that I liked. Like that cost just gets pushed right down.
because the value of doing it is far greater than like the value of not doing it, the pain, it's like, we talk about this on Strive a lot. Just admit it. You really love drinking alcohol. And until really loving not drinking it exceeds that in kind of the cost benefit analysis, you're always going to struggle. This is where the triggers will come up for me.
Well, I don't know if I totally agree with that. I don't think when you really break it down, people do really love drinking. I didn't love drinking alcohol. It was horrible. The reason that we have this phenomenon is perception due to this conditioning. The perception, and we have it in the UK and we have it certainly in the USA, but I think it's almost part of the British culture. It's so deeply embedded, is we believe in our bones that alcohol is the only vehicle to the land of fun, excitement, belonging, connection, relaxing, romance, and sex. So what you just said about your son, he is drinking because he wants to belong.
Yeah.
So because we have been conditioned, this conditioning has been through since we were tiny babies in our culture, that alcohol is the vehicle that will take you to this land. So when we are getting consequences of drinking that we don't like, and we start thinking about like, I don't want those consequences, I don't want to stop drinking, but that feels terrifying and it feels devastating, because we then intellectually we know we have to stop taking in the substance, but emotionally what we feel is you're asking me to never go to that land again.
Yeah.
You're saying to me, I can never go to that land of fun, excitement, belonging, connection. Now, who the hell wants to do that? Now, that's why we have the alcohol problem we do, because that belief system has been so successfully embedded in our thinking, and it's complete BS. Like, it's absolute rubbish. It's like a complete delusion, because there's another land. There is a land of fun, excitement, belonging, connection. We live there, both of us. And you can, first of all, get there sober. And here's the big thing. And I call this a great big sober secret. It's better. It's better. The
in
fun,
every way.
The excitement, the belonging, the connection, all of it. It's
in
better.
Every way, in every single
way. And I don't pay, and I pay nothing. Well, I did pay a very heavy price to get there, but it's not, it's not ongoing. And there's a bridge between the two, and you got to cross the bridge. But that's the bit you have to change for sustainable sobriety. You have to change that belief and perception that alcohol is the only way that you're ever going to get to that land.
So how do we do that?
Well, the way that you do that, to cross the bridge, the answers are always, they're in a couple of places. The reason, so we're talking about triggers. The reason, I think one of your questions was, what is the trigger I see most often in people?
Yeah. What's the most common trigger? Yeah.
Okay, that's really easy. It's always feelings. That's the most common trigger. Human behavior is always a manifestation of how we feel, always. Without it, human behavior cannot lie. It cannot. So when you look at someone's behavior, you have a window into their inner world and how they are feeling. So people who develop an alcohol problem, what is always underneath that is their inability to, usually we weren't taught these tools, they weren't role modeled for us in our family of origin, how to deal with feelings. They just don't know how to deal with feelings and emotions. So for me, I can remember so many times, like, getting dumped. I'd get dumped by someone. I can remember this clearly. This is another North London memory, getting dumped by some guy and going back to my apartment, and I couldn't bear being in my own skin. Like, I couldn't bear it. And I just wanted to change how I felt. And I had zero tools how to do that. And my brain had long ago made the association that alcohol will change how you feel. And I went and got 2 bottles of wine and drank them.
Right.
And I no longer felt that uncomfortableness. So that's under when someone develops an alcohol problem, that is always underneath it. So when someone stops drinking, that's where the real work begins, because we can't grow emotionally when we're abusing alcohol. We're often stuck in kind of like teenage emotional development, and we have to learn those skills and tools. So we have to learn how to deal with our feelings. The end goal being, we want to have appropriate emotional responses to events. So if someone dumps me, of course I'm going to be sad. I'm going to be upset. I might be angry. Those are appropriate emotional responses to that event. Whereas I would feel like I couldn't survive the feelings. That's an inappropriate emotion. And those feelings will come from childhood. So I don't think I've ever had all of us have unresolved childhood trauma. So we have to identify and resolve the childhood trauma. We have to learn the skills to deal with our feelings and emotions so we have appropriate emotional responses to events. Then our brains will stop making the association that we want to numb. So, I mean, in the time that I've been sober, I've been through a lot of stuff. My best friend died the day after I met my husband. I've had lots of things happen, and I was able to have appropriate emotional responses to them. I never wanted to drink.
Yeah, I say to my situation has been actually when I stopped drinking, my challenges increased. So my need to be able to control my emotions and my feelings exacerbated when I stopped drinking, because you get off that path of least resistance. You start pushing yourself more physically, mentally, professionally. So you go up a level. It's like you're like you're in a video game. You've upgraded, so your challenges are so much more complicated. So I think learning to deal with feelings, emotions is like massive. I also think as well for people listening who are parents, like I got a 3-year-old, and me and my wife are both completely with it. Right, when we're not vacant. When we're with her, we're really present because we're not thinking about drinking. We're not drinking. And we're always teaching her that it's okay to be sad, to be angry. We've got emotions charts downstairs, that kind of stuff. If you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, I need to learn how to control my emotions, my feelings. One great way of doing that is by teaching your kids to do it. By teaching your kids, you're forcing yourself to educate yourself. You're learning more and kind of like, rewiring your brain in as you're teaching your children. And you can't really do that when you're not present. So it's almost like, okay, I got to give myself a challenge here to stop drinking alcohol so I can teach my kid how to deal with their feelings and emotions so they don't get in the same problems I am when I'm older. I think that's, if someone's looking for a catalyst, that could be a good catalyst.
Yeah, I think that it is, certainly that's a good method. I think what I see in clients is most adults are terrified of what they're feeling, absolutely terrified. And it really always goes back to childhood. The answers are always there, and that that's never a role model for us. I mean, I'm doing the same thing. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my 8-year-old went through a little thing recently, but it was a big thing for him. Yeah. And I talked about, when I feel frightened, what I do and how that makes me feel and how I deal with it. And he said to me, Mummy, do grown-ups feel frightened too? And I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Do you remember, when this happened, I felt frightened and I thought this, and then I began to think this, and then I began to feel better, and I was just like, oh my God, like I can't, like nobody had that conversation with me when I was growing up. Like no one. Not only did we never talk about feelings and emotions, what was role modeled to me were my feelings were unacceptable. Like I had to just I had to have this very small emotional range in my family that was permitted, and you were not permitted to go outside of that, and your feelings were unacceptable. And so you just squash them in. And then you don't know how to deal with anger, frustration, disappointment, loneliness, sadness. We can be a bit better at dealing with the positive ones, but even then, those we can go overboard with, and we'll drink on the positive ones as much as we'll drink on the negative ones. The real gift of getting sober is becoming fully connected with who you really are, and all your, all this human kind of this whole kind of spectrum of feelings we have access to. They are our internal guidance system.
Yeah, it's almost like people, when they stop drinking, they're like, oh my God, I got all these feelings and I got all these kind of emotions and I can't handle them. And why is it like this? And it's like, no, it's supposed to be like that. You're just learning to be, it's like that scene in the Matrix when Neo's got all those kind of spikes in him and he says, I can't see. And he said, oh, my eyes hurt or something. He said, you're using them for the first time. It's like that kind of thing. Could you lift your mic up a little bit, Veronica? Sure. It goes a little bit quiet sometimes.
Sorry.
Where do you see boredom as a trigger? Do you see it, and how do you deal with it, and what's your thoughts around it?
Yeah, that's a good one. I do definitely see that. And I think that that's, again, part of the conditioning. It's like, so I remember when years ago when I was drinking, and I was dated someone for a couple of years, and we just drank. That's what we worked, we drank. And then we broke up, and I met this new boyfriend, and we certainly drank. And we went out on a Friday night. We're spending the weekend together. We went out on Friday night, we drank. Woke up on Saturday morning, and he was like, well, what do you want to do today? And I was like looking at him thinking, what do you mean? We'll go to the pub. Like,
yeah.
Saturday, we'll go to the pub at lunch, and we'll have a liquid lunch, and we'll probably just stay there all day, maybe watch the football. Like, I was looking at him thinking, what a strange question. And I said, we'll go to the pub. And he did the same thing, looking at me going, well, really? Why? What, all day? Because there's tons of other things that you could do. And I just didn't know how I would fill my time if I didn't go to the pub and drink. And what happens when we get sober is for me, thinking about drinking and recovering from drinking was a full-time job on top of my full-time job. So I had hours left, and I had no idea what to do. All of a sudden I had no friends, because all of my friends at that time were fair weather drinking buddies. Yeah. So I was working, exercise filled, some of that, but I still had hours of time. I had no idea what people did at weekends. Like, no, I don't know, people, they go to a museum, go to the beach. We live near a beach. Like, I had no idea how to do any of that. So when I first stopped drinking, when I was at home in the evenings, like my hands always felt like, I didn't know what to do with my hands. And I painted, and I'm not remotely artistic, but I find it quite relaxing, coloring. Yeah. It's just coloring, really. I think people do it now with the adult coloring books. And it just kind of made my brain a bit calmer. And I did that for 9 months. I've never done it since. But there's definitely part of the bridge is you will get a lot of time back. And at first, you'll be almost lost with how to fill that time. And it's trial and error. I think that's, exercise is really good. Recovery groups can be a big part of that as well. Make it, building a sober community around you. But it's trial and error. You just have to keep showing up and trying things and doing things. And eventually, now I'm like, I'd give my right arm for a few days of like nothing to do.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. We had
and that's what happens, right? When eventually you get to a point where your life just becomes so full and busy, I can't even imagine drinking.
It's ridiculous. Whenever I hear someone say they're bored, it blows my mind for a little bit. I'm like, what? How's that possible? Yeah. Like I just haven't got time to do everything.
Yeah, I'm never bored. I can't remember the last time I was bored. No, but I definitely was in the first year.
I was very fortunate, I think. A lot of these things are just by accident, don't they? They just happen by accident. I read Alan Carr's Easy Way to Control Alcohol. I knew I was going to stop drinking because I'd already read his smoking book like 10 years before. So I knew once I picked the book up, it was going to brainwash me, do the job. And then almost immediately, I read Jack Canfield's Success Principles immediately. And he was chucking like 50, 60 principles at me. And I'm like, I've got to adopt that. And then very, very quickly, I was always doing something. It was like, I hate my job. I need a new job. Now that became like a big project. How am I going to get out of my job? All of a sudden, these projects just materialize. But I can't imagine a lot of people. And I had a bit of a kind of, I don't give a fuck attitude. So I lost all my friends, and my attitude was, I don't give a fuck. Right. Whereas I think a lot of people can lose all their friends, and then your feelings and the emotions, like, I'm lonely and disconnected. Everybody hates me. I'm never gonna, and that's gonna, then they're gonna retreat, and then they're gonna think to themselves, wow, drinking alcohol was so much better than this. Because if alcohol is anything, it's manic, right? It's manic. It's busy. It's like, it's mental
chaos. It's drama.
Chaos. It's stuff,
Yeah. Which is why, I don't really feel that why get sober on your own? It's too hard. You can't do it on your own. You need help. You need professional, expert help, sober groups. It's just, don't make it any harder on yourself than it really needs to do. We're not talking about, it's not a minor thing. It's not like, I'm going to, become vegetarian. It's not like you could probably do that by yourself. Having an alcohol problem is a serious mental health condition. And we can't, it's like you wouldn't try and fix your own broken leg. You would go and see a professional. We need outside help. to do this. It's really, I think people do it on their own, but I don't think, why would you make it much harder than
that's the strength of the conditioning though, isn't it? It's like the conditioning is so, the belief system that alcohol is normal and pleasurable and the gateway to, to utopia. The world has done such a good job at creating that narrative that people don't think they don't understand the magnitude of the problem. So even when they decide they're going to quit, that the thought of like going to a group or something is like, well, I've got to admit that I've got a problem. I haven't got a problem. I'm just normal. And I often say to my dad's like, yeah, I haven't got a problem. I'm like, Dad, you're like nearly 70, mate. You've been banging it down you every weekend since you were 14. If you don't think that is kind of like an addiction somewhere along the line, it doesn't matter if you don't drink Monday to Friday, mate. You know what I mean? It's like, if I asked you now to just give it up and not drink alcohol, would you be able to do it? And you wouldn't be able to do it. Simple as that.
Well, yeah, and it's because we have normalized abnormal drinking. So we've normalized that. I think again, one of the parts of the conditioning that we all have is the perception that someone with an alcohol problem, an alcoholic, is a smelly old man on a bench.
Yeah.
And if you're not that, then you don't have an alcohol problem. So we've normalized abnormal drinking, so it's acceptable, and it's acceptable in all levels, whether you're a teenager or a banker or a 70-year-old retiree. And it's the conditioning of what he's hearing you say is, you're asking me to give up the thing that's
life,
fun and relaxing, and I feel like I belong with my mates in the pub and all that kind of stuff. And it's a delusion. We know it's a delusion.
Oh, if you saw my dad drinking in the pub, you'd know it's a delusion. He doesn't talk to anybody, and nobody talks to him.
Yeah. But that's, it's like, I think the biggest thing, isn't it, about getting sober is that you mentioned the matrix. It is about waking up. You wake up, and all sobriety is that you see everything differently. It's like the world hasn't changed. The world has not changed. But how I perceive it and how I respond to it is fundamentally altered.
So we have people on Strive who have woke up and are saying that they don't want to drink alcohol. Mm-hmm. And then some people we have a system in Strive where if I'm triggered to drink alcohol today, whether or not I drink or not, then I come on to Strive. There's 13 questions that I answer and ask my peer group for support, because I might have blind spots, to kind of uncover the root cause of why I'm drinking. Why did I drink today? Like, what was the purpose? What was I expecting to get out of it? And the purpose of that is to get people to go much deeper than, I wanted to drink because I was going out with the lads. The questions are then, well, why did you feel you needed to have a drink to go out with the lads? So we're hoping that they get to the point of, oh, wow, like, I've been trying to fit in for so long, and I don't belong, and I need to kind of deal with that issue. But so many people don't want to post in triggers. They don't want to go there, and I'm always thinking to myself, because I'm just always kind of trying to share what worked for me and best practices I pick up along the way. And for me, identifying the root cause of my triggers, i.e., going back to childhood trauma and stuff, started by, I drank last night, or I wanted to drink, and now I need to kind of get a rational, logical lens on that to understand why I did that, which will then also cover the emotions and the feelings and stuff. But if people don't want to do that, and they're afraid of it, like they don't want to be vulnerable, they feel shame. Is there any other advice that you give to people of how to get to the...
I'm going to say that deeper work is not something you can do straight away. You really need to get, I think, at least a year of being alcohol free, see that your life's improved, that things are different, and then that deeper work will inevitably manifest itself, that it will require your attention. So it's not something you can do, I think, in the first few weeks, 3 months, necessarily 6 months, because you're talking about opening up stuff from the past that has so many deep feelings in it. They can rock us. So we need to get anchored. So we need to get anchored, and then we need to, and then we can do the deeper work. So I mean, when I work with clients, we do the FOMO, we do the cost benefit analysis. And then I have tools that I'll teach people. Because once you have these tools to deal with your feelings and emotions, you're going to start feeling better. You're going to start seeing things differently. Boundaries is very important. That's probably one of the first things I teach people. We also uncover limiting beliefs and have a look what's going on in the subconscious mind, so we can start rooting out that kind of stuff. Patterns in relationship. Really all we're talking about is personal development. There's a philosopher, I forget which one, Plato, Socrates, who said that famous quote saying, "A life lived unexamined is not a life." And that's the road that everybody gets to that point. It's, do I take the journey into myself or do I not? And people, and I think that's the difference between people who get sober and people don't. People want the consequences to stop. They want the nasty stuff to stop. They don't want to drink. They're absolutely not prepared to do the work. And you will only get so far. If we are not prepared to go onto the journey inside of ourselves, which will always be uncomfortable, then we will never grow from out of the current bubble that we exist in. And for me, there is simply no other way. That is unacceptable to me. I cannot stay in that place. I cannot stay in this place.
How would you what's your version of the work?
What do you mean, the version of the work?
So you said there that there's a lot of people who want to get rid of the negative aspects of alcoholism, but they're not willing to do the work to get rid of it, right? So we talk about doing the work a lot on Strive. And one of the most common questions is, what is the work, right? So everybody will have a different opinion. What's your version?
Okay, so that's a good question. So the work is, it's the journey inside of yourself. It's the personal development. You have to really know yourself, and you have to really understand why you feel and respond the way that you do, and you have to continue that journey for the rest of your life. It's a spiritual journey. That's the work. And now there's some fundamental parts of that. You absolutely have to resolve your childhood trauma, because that will just show up again and again and again and again. And you can't unrun it. You can't push it away. It's much harder. It will come calling. You have to resolve that. Now, resolving that is much easier than running away from it. But it's terrifying. It's really frightening. So we have to deal with our unresolved childhood issues and childhood trauma. We have to develop the skills that we need to have appropriate emotional responses to events. So we have to have boundaries. We have to learn how to deal with fear. We have to learn how to have appropriate emotional responses. We have to learn to listen to our bodies and our feelings and pay attention to the information and messages they're giving us. We have to examine the data. Why did I have that response? It just happened to me just the other day. I had an email exchange with somebody, and she sent an email to me, and I just had that, that emotional, like, who the hell do you think you are? Right. That's an inappropriate emotional response to the email. And I have journal prompts that I've used for years that help me unpick that and then see it differently and go, oh, okay, that's why I feel the way that I do. And then immediately I begin to feel differently. Whereas years ago, I just reacted to it. I'd send a nasty email back or whatever, sabotage something. So we have to learn emotional intelligence. That really, there's being sober and there's emotional sobriety. And lots of people are sober in that they don't drink, but they are not emotionally sober. And emotional sober is when we have mastery over our emotional internal life.
Okay, I like that. Because I have people on Strive who have been with us for a very long time. Like, I've had people who've been there for 2 years, but the work, they're not applying the work consistently. So Zia, my daughter, she's 3. We just paid for her to have an intensive swimming lessons, 10 lessons. And then after she had a 10th lesson, my wife said, holy crap, like, it just occurred to me, I'm going to have to take her swimming every day. Because if she doesn't go swimming every day now, and we wait until we go on holiday, that 10-day intensive is not going to be enough. She's going to develop the fear that she had when she first was asked to jump in that pool, which she no longer has, will very, very quickly return, right? So for me, and ask your opinion as well, when we quote unquote do the work, there needs to be some consistency on this, because if we just leaving it and then coming back to it, for me, I can't see how we're going to develop these habits that we need both emotionally and tactically in order for us to move forward. I mean, I don't know what your view is on that.
Absolutely. So what we're actually talking about is self-discipline. And that is the only way that we can have emotional mastery. So we both have children of a similar age. So if my youngest son never brushed his teeth again, he'd be perfectly fine with that. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. He'd be fine if he never had another bath, or he could run around in his pajamas for weeks. Now, we know that it's good. He has to brush his teeth because that's going to take care of his teeth. He has to wash, all of those kind of things. So we parent them so that it's a discipline. They do it every single day without fail. Like once in a blue moon, he'll not brush his teeth at night, but every day without fail, because we know that discipline will serve him in the future. And at some point we were the same. At some point we didn't want to do those things, but at some point, now if I got up this morning and just got out of bed and went, let's say I had an office, got in my car, went, didn't do anything, didn't have a wash, didn't brush my teeth, I would feel like just awful, or like that would, who does that, right? We never do that, because we have been disciplined to take care of our external appearance because of the benefits of that. What we're talking about is we have to develop, I call them empowering habits. We have to develop a discipline to take care of our internal well-being too. So just in the same way that you make time to do your hair, brush your teeth, wash your face, because of how that makes you feel and the benefit you get from that, we have to create time and space in our day to take care of our internal emotional life too. You're absolutely right. It's consistency, but we have to develop it as a discipline. So yesterday, when I had that emotional reaction, it was automatic for me. Like, I don't even think about it. I know exactly what I need to do. I am so comfortable in my own skin. My life is, my default setting is just balanced. So whenever I step out of that, it's so obvious to me so quickly, I take the necessary action because I've disciplined myself too. What we're talking about is personal development. This is the thing. The human race all needs to do personal development. We are extremely lucky that we have been motivated through painful experiences to really step that up. Like the regular, normal people down the street who don't have a problem with alcohol, they need to do personal development, but they may not know that. Again,
it's to me, it's like where I grew up. Certainly, it's conditioning. Education ends when you leave school, and then anybody who's reading a book is a sissy. I mean, it's just a lot of nonsense. Like, I can't even now. I cannot get my 18-year-old to read a book. Like he cannot see the value in it, right? And I know at some point in the future he'll get there on his own time. I was 35 when I started reading books, so he's got a lot of time on his hands. I want to just circle back on something, because I don't want my community to get confused. I want them to understand, get a bit more clarity on this. So, what tends to happen on Strive at the moment is people will immerse in the community. They'll check in on a regular basis. They'll share how they're feeling emotionally. They'll tell people what they're doing in their day and the challenges they're having. And when they do that, we just give them support and we hold space for them. And then there's another area where they can actually ask, hey, can you help me out with this? Right? So there's that area as well. And then there's a third area, like I said, which is, wow, yesterday I was in the supermarket and I went down the wine, area, and I really wanted to drink alcohol. And then we lead them into the 13 questions. We also have coaches. So what we'll find is it will become apparent through the peer group support and help and them working and doing their own self-development. Hey, I have an issue here of fitting in. And I'm picking on Kim, one of our strivers, who recently realized that she had a sexual trauma that she needed to deal with, and also relationship trauma, like going all the way back to her wedding day. So then we get an appropriate coach who's excels in trauma-related, and then she works with that guy, and we've had some really good results, and then we continue to kind of doing the work in the personal development. Now, I just want to link that back into when you said that you didn't feel like people should be working on these deep issues until they're a year sober, because what I'm finding on Strive is they can't get a year sober because of these deep-rooted issues. So I just want to clear that up a little bit.
So we have to do this in stages. I mean, I'm not like, it's not a rule that you have to wait till you're a year sober. We have to do we have to make, this has to be our main thing for at least the first year or two. The main thing, of course, I have to pay my rent and look after my kids. But apart from the like life and death things I have to do every day, my main thing has to be not drinking.
Yeah.
And creating a structure and support that enables that. Then when I feel that I'm in a stable enough place, well, it's not, I don't think that really is what happens. I think what happens is we get to a certain point and then it becomes apparent to us like, wow, I really have issues with men.
Yeah.
Wow, who knew that? Like, I always used to think I picked bad uns, but actually I have this real pattern here. What's that about? Oh my God, it's to do with the fact that my dad walked out when I was 8. And there you go, there's the deeper work.
Yeah.
So it's at some point, now it's different for everybody. You have to go to that. And it never stops, by the way. It never stops. There is always, the thing about human beings and thing about sobriety is when we are drinking, we can't grow, and we have to grow. It's a universal law of life. If you look around, you will see that to be true. In buildings, organizations, people, nature, everything's growing. If we're not growing, then we are dying. So when we're drinking, we are dying on the inside. We're certainly not growing. We're not able to grow emotionally. So where I was at 18 years sober was freaking amazing. But I couldn't be there now. Like I can't, where I am at 19 and a half years, I'm going to be 20 years sober in May. I couldn't be in this place because I'm always called to grow. And it's always a little bit, it's a thing about growth. It's always a bit uncomfortable. And people with an alcohol problem have a natural inclination to not want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So being able to sit with discomfort and know that you're going to survive it and it's okay, and there's a growth opportunity and there's some information there for you, and that it will pass and will be better is one of the most essential skills that you can learn. So I think, so I've worked in rehab for a long time. I don't anymore, but I did it a lot. And nearly everybody who comes into rehab has been deeply traumatized by something. So you're doing both those things at the same time. You are getting them the tools to keep getting days sober, but you're also really therapeutically dealing with the fact that they went through these awful traumas. And you just got to keep doing that by layers. So I am going to say, in my experience, there's lots of people who want to stop drinking but don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
Those are not my client group. And when the people who come to me are the people who really want to do the work.
Yeah, I'm just going through that at the moment, like figuring out how I'm going to make use of my time and my skills and my experience to reach a greater group of people. And someone said to me the other day that the people who don't want to do the work actually take up a lot of time. Yeah. And then you're not spending time with your thoroughbreds, the ones who have really got the bit between the teeth and they really want to get going. So we're definitely going to be making some changes at Strive in that respect, because
that's been my experience. I think that you can see that in a lot of the 12-step programs. That's why people find meetings very unattractive. Is lots of people are sober, but they're not emotionally sober and are not fulfilled. They're not happy, and they're staying away from a drink one day at a time. I looked at that and thought, there has to be more.
Yeah.
By its very definition, I am somebody who, when they start to drink, and I use the term alcoholic, it's always fitted for me. Mm-hmm. I want more. I have always wanted more. There was never enough. There was never enough cocaine. There was never enough cigarettes. There was never enough alcohol. And my sobriety has been the exact opposite. There's been, a reflection of that. There is just, I want more.
More knowledge, more experience.
Yeah. And it's not to say I'm not satisfied, because I am, but I am always like, what else is there? What else can we do? How's that going to, what experience is that going to
That's why you're never bored. That's why you can never be bored,
right?
God,
how can you be like, there's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah. I just want to ask you one last question, because, I'm always interested in people who say that they don't really, what people say about them doesn't really bother them, because I've done a lot of personal development. And, you know, when I like I work in a poker industry, right? And yesterday, last week, I put a video out, which I knew wasn't one of our best because the person I was interviewing was really difficult. We didn't get a connection. And I knew the comments were going to be negative, but I read them anyway, and it really hurt me. And then I said, right, I'm never reading them again. And then I published another one, which I knew was going to be good. And I went and read the bloody comments, right? I have to try very hard at not allowing that kind of stuff to affect me. And what I'm thinking about here is people who are going to stop drinking alcohol, and then they realize that the people they've been spending time with are really not their people, right? Yeah. Or they don't even know that yet, but they're going to lose them, and they start to lose them, and they start to feel alienated, and then they start to feel really lonely and disconnected. Is the work to go out and get new friends, or is this the work I need to work on myself? I need to work on building up my emotional intelligence, finding out who I am, what I love, what I like, etc., and then go out and get new friends? Or is it kind of a mix of both? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think you can actually really work on yourself unless you are engaged in a meaningful connection with other people in the world.
Right. So those people you surround yourself with become super important then. Yeah.
I mean, I was 27 when I got sober, and I had no friends when I stopped. I mean, like I had a couple. Again, that's why recovery groups were really helpful to me. They were just safe. I needed people to go to coffee with and a movie with, and it just kind of went from there. And the same when I moved to America, I had the same thing. I had a fantastic group of friends in the UK, a really big social life, and then I moved to America with my new American husband. I didn't know anyone, and I had a new baby, and I had to work at that. You just have to keep showing up. I think the big message I would say there is that you have to keep showing up. You may meet groups of people and they're not your people. Not everybody is my people, but you have to keep showing up because it's not going to come to your door. You have to keep showing up, and eventually you'll find those people that you click.
You have to do the work. Veronica, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. You have a triggers training course, right? Talk about that a little bit.
I have two workshops. So one of the things I practice is emotional freedom technique. It's tapping, and it really helps. So there's a short-term and long-term answer to dealing with triggers. The short-term, I wish I'd known EFT when I first got into sobriety, because it really helps with anxiety and panic attacks. So I have two workshops: the easy way to beat alcohol triggers and the easy way to beat sugar cravings.
Yeah.
So those are really short-term solutions to just get you calmer, deal with that stuff, to get through another day. So they're on offer at the moment. If you go to thrive.soberfullife.com, there's an invitation there to join a support group that I have a podcast. Myself and Chip Summers are running just a pop-up support group through the holidays. It opens today, and you can get an invitation to get both the workshops at half price, or about half price.
Awesome.
So it's thrive.soberfullife.com.
Thrive.soberfullife.com. I will send them there. Thanks for all the work you do, Veronica. We need more Veronicas in the world. I really appreciate your time here.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Folks, just want to record a very brief afterword after speaking to Veronica Valli about triggers. You should definitely check out Veronica's work. She has, I think her training courses are $49, I think, for the triggers, one with alcohol and the one with sugar as well, So check them out if you're going to get half price. That link was thrive.soberfullife.com. And, I want to touch a little bit about doing the work. So Veronica said about the importance of doing the work. Well, what does that look like on Strive? Because it's going to look like somewhat different everywhere, right? So this is how I see doing the work on Strive. Well, first and foremost, again, something Veronica said that I want to accentuate because I think it's really important. If you want to be a striver, if you want to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, you really have to put the mission of being alcohol-free number one priority in your life. Yeah, you got to put food on the table. You got to work, got to earn a bill. You got to sleep. You got to spend time with your family and stuff. But this should be right up there with all that kind of stuff. Like with your Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, I've got my basic needs met now. The number one goal is I need to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol. I need to stop drinking alcohol. And every decision that you make in life should be made through that lens. Like, what does this mean to my decision not to drink alcohol, right? So if I'm going to just skip sleep today and just only have 3 hours sleep, what does that mean to my decision to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol? I'm going to go out on Saturday night. I'm going to go out Sunday all day with the boys to watch 2 football matches. What does that mean to my decision to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, right? And answer those questions through that lens. So you're prioritizing it, okay? I think that's really important. And then, like, to get more practical, then you need to start saying to yourself, like, what work do I need to do in order for me to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol? And this is where, when people say I'm bored, it makes me feel like they're not doing the work, okay? Because if you was doing the work, you'd never get bored. There's an argument to be made, I guess, I'm bored of doing the work. But I think in most cases that would have to be interrogated. And I imagine that would have to be interrogated with a peer group, just in case you had a blind spot, because resistance could be really prevalent there. I am fascinated with personal growth and personal development. And anybody that I meet who makes that their sole focus are also fascinated with it. I can't see how you can get bored of it. Yeah, sometimes you just don't want to read another book. You don't want to watch another documentary. You just want to relax and just chill out. But those periods are kind of few and far between, right? So if you are bored, you got to ask yourself, am I doing the work, right? So what does doing the work look like on Strive? Well, for me, this is what doing the work would look like. I would be checking in on a regular basis, checking in well. So I would be sharing how I'm feeling emotionally. I would be sharing what I'm doing in my life and what my challenges are. And I would get used to being uncomfortable with writing about my feelings and my emotions. Because Veronica said, didn't she, the importance, like the biggest trigger is dealing with feelings and emotions. But one way to practice getting better at that is to share and talk about your feelings and your emotions with strangers and other people, or strangers initially at Strive, and then they become your friends, right? So checking in is really important. Asking help and guidance, asking people questions to problems that you have on Strive is doing the work. And then taking their feedback and acting on it is also doing the work. I also think that when you're triggered to drink alcohol, going to the trigger section and asking your peers to help you with those 13 questions is also doing the work. Taking the intensive is doing the work. Doing one assignment a day is doing the work. Doing one assignment a day as opposed to one assignment a week. One assignment a day is doing the work. One assignment a week, to me, isn't constitutes doing the work, okay? You can listen to podcasts, not just alcohol-related podcasts. I never listen to alcohol-related podcasts. I listen to self-growth, very interesting growth-orientated podcasts, right? Self-development. You heard Veronica talk about the importance of growing your EQ, your emotional intelligence. I couldn't agree with her more. So listen to podcasts that can help you grow your emotional intelligence. Read great self-help books. Don't get lost in book after book after book of alcohol, sobriety kind of memoirs and how-to books, right? You only need one book in alcohol, and that's Alan Carr's. Read that, and then after that, everything you should be reading should be about the other issues you have in life. So if you feel you don't have any grit and determination, you might want to buy Grit by Duckworth, right? If you are not organizing your life and you suffer from decision fatigue, you might want to buy Ray Dalio's Principles. If you don't know how to belong and you feel like fitting in, you might want to buy one of Melanie Joy's communication books. Or if you want some tools on how you can, deal with triggers in the short term, you might buy some of David Burns' work in cognitive behavioral therapy. But that is doing the work, reading that kind of stuff. But not just reading it, and taking notes, and then sharing those notes with your peer group and acting on them and asking questions and philosophizing on them, right? That's doing the work. Continually assessing your decisions, the cause and effect in your life, really kind of focusing on what is going on. When you do this, that happens. And is that what you want to happen? So I think a planning system is really important. I think a personal planning system is really important. You know, you ask yourself certain questions to set up your day, and you review at the end of the day. And then the next day, you change the way you behave in accordance to your review mechanisms. So you're always getting better, right? I think that is doing the work as well. I think getting out and meeting new people is doing the work. Looking after yourself healthfully and eating well and researching about nutrition and exercise, that is doing the work. Attending as many online courses and online meetings and coaching calls as you can is doing the work, right? It really is. So, yeah, some of them are at hours that don't suit your day. Get over it, right? If it's a little bit late, you're not 2 years of age. You're not going to fall asleep. Get over it. Get on the call. Me and Stella were on a call the other day, 10 o'clock at night, doing the confessions game. Stella come on all sleepy. By the time we got half hour into it, she could have run a marathon. You know, it's like those online courses are really, and online workshops are really important. Working with coaches at Stride, very, very important. Like Veronica said, in her opinion, most of our issues are rooted in some childhood trauma. We have the people here at Stride that can help you with that. Book sessions with the coaches and work with the coaches. So there's some examples of how you could be doing the work, right? I also like as well doing the work around identifying theme in your life. What is your meaning and purpose? And then creating a plan in order for you to achieve that theme, to be living that life and to eradicate the habits and the behaviors that don't align with that life. And added to that, work on values. What are your core values, and are you living your life vicariously through your core values? Are you doing that? You know, and again, your review process is really important there. So if you're doing all those things and you're never going to give up and you're taking your vow and every time you fall down, you get back up again, you're doing the work, and you know, you're someone that I want to really help. And that you don't have to be specific to Strive. You can be doing work with Veronica Valli. You could be doing work with Annie Grace. You could be doing work with Holly Whitaker, etc., etc., etc. That's fine. My own preference is to stick with one thing. There's too much noise. Stick with one thing that works for you. And when that one thing isn't work for you, ask somebody to take a look at why it's not working for you so they can identify a blind spot, particularly because we're dealing with addiction and resistance is going to be, quite active, right? So there you are, Veronica Valli. Get over to her website and check her out. We'll put the link here, wherever you need it. Give me an email at truthaboutalcohol@gmail.com if you are interested in taking our intensive, and if you are interested in changing your life basically and doing some work with our great coaches and joining the Strive community. What else have I got to say to you? That's about it. Yeah, just email me, truthaboutalcohol@gmail.com. Take care, buddies. Bye.